So now, does this seem strange to anyone that the buyers ended up having their price changed by less than the sellers had their price changed by? Maybe you might think that the reason for that is that we were asking the sellers to pay this tax, right? The sellers pay the tax onto the government. We would say that the sellers had the legal or statutory requirement to pay the tax. But what if this weren't the case? What if the buyers instead paid the tax? I don't know exactly how we do this. Maybe on our income taxes each year we're forced to disclose how many DVDs we bought, and then we pay $6 for every DVD that we bought. It's certainly possible, even if it probably have some compliance problems. So how would we show this on our graph? Well, we wouldn't move the supply curve anymore. Instead, we'd be thinking about moving the demand curve. And the reason for that is that we want to have the price that's listed, if you like, on this diagram be the money that's changing hands between the buyers and the sellers. And so the buyers are not going to end up paying the tax to the sellers, they're going to end up paying it to the government instead. Now, let's suppose that we were thinking the amount that was going to be traded was still 60,000. The demand curve immediately tells us that that can't be right. That it can't be right that the price is going to stay at $14, right? Because at $14, our buyers want to buy 60,000 DVDs, but that $14 is the total price that they pay, including the $6 tax. So in order to show a new demand curve that incorporates the understanding that the buyers have to pay a $6 tax when they buy a DVD, the price that they hand over to the sellers is going to have to be lower by exactly $6, the amount of the tax. So that's what I'm showing on the next slide here. To include a tax paid by the buyers, we would shift the demand curve down by $6 and then look for a new equilibrium where our original supply curve and our demand curve with tax cross. So that would be right there, yeah? A price of $10. The buyers pay the sellers $10. They buy 50,000 DVDs. And eventually the total price paid by the buyers is $16. $10 to the seller plus a $6 tax onto the government. And so the important observation here is that, look, nothing ended up changing. All of those numbers ended up being the same, regardless of who had this legal or statutory requirement to pay the tax. The sellers ended up paying more of the tax, $4. The buyers ended up paying less of the tax, $2. So we call this division the tax incidence, the division of the burden of this tax between the buyers and the sellers. In this case, the buyers pay $2 of the tax, the sellers $4. That's a 1/3 to 2/3 split of this tax. And as we saw, this is not a consequence of the statutory requirement to pay this tax.